Hello, everyone, and welcome to Beyond the Classroom, a Stanford podcast, the show that aims to give you a dose of inspiration and insight into the future of international education and keeps you in the know of everything going on here at Stamford American International School in Singapore. I'm your host, James Bennett, Head of Communications here at Stanford. Today, we have the pleasure of exploring the realm of service learning with Shaylin Chavez. Join us as we unravel the ins and outs of this transformative experience, shedding light on the impactful initiatives our students are passionately undertaking. Make sure to stay tuned until the end for a comprehensive insight into the profound contributions of our service learning program. Our guest today is Shaylin Chavez. She is the Service Learning Coordinator here at Stanford and has a great passion for, you guessed it, service learning. Hi, Shaylin. How are you today?
Hi, I am great. Happy to be here.
Great. Good to have you.
Thank you.
All right, so what are we here for? We're here to talk about service learning. So Shaylin, tell me about service learning. What is it?
Yeah, service learning is really the idea of learning how to become a person who thinks of others, acts when they can, and is of service to themselves and the world. In a nutshell, it's a way to be a better person.
Well, the world could always use better people. Could you tell me some examples of how the service learning program is making a difference in the community here in Singapore?
Yeah, definitely. As a service learning program, we're really focused on identifying student strengths and then helping them grow in areas they are unaware of yet or opportunities they haven't had to explore. And through service, so through acts of service for others in the community, on campus, around the world, they are building on those strengths and they are continuing to expand. The reason I say that is because we had a really great opportunity to connect with the community through the identification of a need and then the awareness of the strengths of our students here on campus. The PTA helped to coordinate this amazing activity and event with the Mad About Giving campaign to give back for our migrant workers that are here right in our Woodlake community, building literally the buildings across the street. They were struggling. And so we identified a way to use our strengths on this campus and help out those people, gathering donations, student-led coordination for support here. They talked about awareness. They went through advisory classes and identified who a migrant worker is, how we might interact with different types of people in our day-to-day life, and points of awareness in order to be kind and be considerate when otherwise we might not always be so observant. And then they went out and they acted upon it, donating more than 1,500 items to the migrant workers.
Okay.
And it was awesome.
That's very cool. What kind of items did they donate?
Yeah, we really put a focus on when we serve, it means we are actively thinking of others before we think of ourselves. So what we did is we asked, what do you need? And what they needed were umbrellas. What they needed were things like shampoos, toiletries, and small products that could help them in their day-to-day life. Okay. So we took those and we brought that stuff in.
Well, that makes sense. Wow. Okay. Very cool stuff that you're doing. How do you mix the service learning stuff with what the kids kind of learn in class?
Great question. In class, we're working to embed service into every curriculum. That would be the hip, hip, hooray, we've done it all. Right. But of course, because this is real life, it gets more complicated than that. And the steps we are taking are a wonderful progression towards that ultimate goal. What we do have currently is are opportunities for students to engage with some of their learning that really helps them become advocates for change or to think more globally about their mindset when they're learning new skills or tasks. A specific example could be in grade 7. The students were learning about natural versus synthetic products, and they were doing this amazing scientific discovery where they were walking through what does it take to make a natural product? What does it take to make a synthetic product? Wow. And they were looking at things like gummy bears and, you know, tennis shoes and different things we use all the time.
So gummy bears would be synthetic.
Gummy bears would be synthetic. All right. Yes.
Just making sure.
And then we tied that to where things are made and where things are coming from. Really to get a tangible sense that someone is making this and something on our planet is contributing to this product. And we looked at the impacts of what those products were having so that students could identify more of an ethical background of what does it mean when I buy these gummy bears? Who is making them? How are they making them?
Yeah.
Versus if I buy this mango, who is making this? How are they making it? It's not to say that synthetic or natural is necessarily better or worse, but that awareness is so important. And that is a service.
Okay. So did you find some geographical trends there?
We did a little bit,
Okay.
Identifying a lot in rainforests where deforestation could hurt not only the flora and fauna, but also the people that were living there. And then comparing that to the benefit of the financial gain when you have those moments. So really kind of playing at this balance of what does it mean when we are successful? What does it mean when we are hurting the environment? Are those things connected? Are they not connected? Again, not to say that all things are or aren't. That awareness and that ethical kind of thought process is actually a service that we focus on. And it's not really a service directly to someone else, but it's more of a service intrinsically that if a student can think about the impact of what they're doing or what's happening around them, then they can make more ethical choices based on their personal beliefs in the future. So having that as a background, building that into our curriculum really allows, hopefully, students to have this skill that can make them and the world a little bit of a better place.
Very cool. So it's somewhat of service awareness that you're creating. Oh.
Yes, and that would be something, too, that I think is commonly misconstrued with our service. A lot of schools have a set number of service hours that students are supposed to complete, right? I have to volunteer this many times or, do these many things. And although that's good, we love a volunteer. It's not a bad thing. We are focused more on the IB service learning outcomes, which are skills, so tangible skills that students can gain and learn from through completing acts of service. That ethical responsibility is, of course, one that's a little bit more intrinsic. There are some that are very extrinsic, where you would need to literally help someone else in order to practice that skill.
Okay.
And we see that with grade 9. They are working actually with the grade 6 team. They are designing games, and they reached out to see if there were any needs around the school. Like, do teachers need any games to make learning more fun? Is there something we could make that would benefit others? And the grade 6 teachers raised their hand and reached out and said, we love a game, right? That can always help pull kids in.
Yeah.
So now our grade 9 students are designing and developing physical games that are connected directly to the curriculum that our grade 6 students will be learning in Unit 4.
Oh, wow.
And they're going to deliver those games to the students to play in class and get results on their learning real time. So it was a need that we saw, and in the community we were able to meet. So all students are now going to be able to connect what they're doing in class exactly with an opportunity for service.
Wow, that's very cool. So they're kind of contributing directly to the school community.
Exactly.
Which is very neat. Okay. So how would you say that, I mean, it seems that it's making quite a big difference in some of these kids' lives, most likely, right?
Hope so.
Yeah, it should be, right? That's the idea, right? So how would you say that service learning changes students personally? Any stories that come to mind?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of changes that can occur. I think each person is different, but some specific stories that come to mind and some ways that I've kind of seen connect across ages and situations are really opening the eyes of students to say, oh, I can make a difference, even if I'm not doing something huge, right? So one specific example would be a grade 8 student that wrote in a reflection about a time where they noticed their neighbor was an elderly person, was struggling with some groceries that were continuously left on their doorstep, right? I'm assuming apartment across. Obviously, in a reflection, we don't get all the details, but I get to see this little window of goodness that comes through in these moments. And this student went with their parents based on our service learning assembly and said, hey, I think we might be able to help. They and their family went across the street. They were able to ask this neighbor if they wanted the student to bring in the groceries when they saw them outside. And this neighbor was thrilled. They didn't know that the person had recently had surgery, and it was very difficult for them to move the groceries inside. And they would often have to wait until their son or daughter came over much later in the evening. And some of their food even would get spoiled. And so, right, with this small act of thoughtfulness, and this is a little thing I can do to make a difference, this student saw a huge impact. And it was a beautiful reflection because it also ended with a story of the fact that they are still in communication today. Now, it doesn't always happen in that perfect of a little bow, but really the idea for a change that we see in students is that they're aware and that they're present with what's happening around them, and they are taking action when they can, even in little moments like that really add up to make a big difference.
Wow, that's a great story. Wow, that inspires, adults as well. It inspires me to kind of look for opportunities to help others. Do you have any big service related events that are coming up that possibly the community could help out with? Not just the student community, but as well the parent community.
Right. I think at this point, moving through to the end of the year and knowing the crazy schedule that the students are already on with testing and all sorts of end of the year activities and fun stuff too, we don't have a lot planned for the outward community, but we do have a lot planned for the in Stamford community. So small things like making sure that we have positivity days or like mental health support opportunities for students when they're feeling stressed. Right now, our service clubs are planning a lot of like de-stress moments and a lot of happiness sort of sprinkles, if you will, here and there, which is
sprinkles of joy.
Sprinkles of joy. I love that. Yeah. And they're planning a lot of that because they know what is needed, which again, I think goes back to that teaching and learning moment of, when I'm serving others, it's not because I want to do this thing. It's because I've seen that someone else needs help, and therefore I'm going to help. And that was a big challenge, and is a big challenge physically in our brains even, for us to kind of switch that. And so it's a skill that we're working on constantly with the students. And I'm proud of them for taking that and for continuing to work with it to plan some of these events. I do know in the future, and especially we already are starting to plan some stuff for next year, there will be a lot of opportunities where we'll need some parent or community support when we do sort of larger scale drives, or when we're looking to do more on-campus like group events, conferences, pulling in other schools. Even promoting service just at home is something that could be really helpful and beneficial for all students. Like you were saying, hearing that story about that student inspired me as well.
Yeah.
I looked for more places, more spots where I might be able to help out in small ways here and there. If there's a bike that's tipped over, maybe I pick it up. I don't know whose it is, but that's something I can do, right? That's a service.
Actually, just the other day, that's funny that you mentioned that. Just the other day, a little bit older lady, older than myself, I'm very young, by the way, she was riding a bike just across the street over to Woodley Mall, and she had fallen down.
Oh, no.
And she looked really frazzled, and she needed some help, and the handlebars were kind of bent up. But there was a group of seniors around her. Because now they're allowed to go to Woodley Mall, as you know, to eat lunch and whatnot. And they were trying to help her. And actually, I just walked up as well. And then, of course, I helped her because, I felt, sorry for her and wanted to help. Picked up the bike and fixed the handlebar for her because I knew that would be something tough to do. And then she said, thank you very much. I don't think she spoke too much English, but it was a nice moment, though, to see that, those 12th graders... and you usually think of, they're the older, 12th graders. They may not care too much because they're high schoolers. They're ready to get out of school.
Yeah.
They're ready to run off. But to see them kind of like stop and try to help her, it was pretty nice.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
That's such a good moment.
Yeah.
And I think talking about that even as a family, as a community, having that awareness is something that can bring about more of those moments. So what could we do as a community to support our students? We can just continue to have conversations where service is on our mind. Doesn't need to be all the time, but every once in a while, if you get the chance and you're out as a family or you're doing something with a group that you're a part of, is there a way that you could think of to help or to assist? Or is there even just a chat that you could have with a student to say, hey, what are you thinking? What are you doing? How is your service as action coming along?
Right. Would you say that there's groups of students or people more likely to naturally gravitate to service than others? Because I feel like teachers would naturally gravitate to service because pretty much you're giving service every day, right? You're serving the students, you're teaching them, you're kind of giving a little bit of counseling here and there when it's needed. I feel it's like almost natural for teachers to be, very service oriented. Would you say there's a group of people that are more natural and there's a group of people that aren't?
Yes, I would say that's a very kind thought for all teachers, but we are also human beings and every human being is different. I think to your point, there are some people who it's just a little easier for because that's maybe a more natural thought process for some. Just like public speaking is a little bit easier for some, math comes a little bit easier for others. You have these skills that are kind of innate in your almost like brain chemistry. I'm not sure. I'm not a neuroscientist, so I don't know.
Maybe a product of your environment, right?
And also a product of your environment.
Yeah.
But I think that goes to the fact that you would hope most adults can do some basic math, right? Almost everyone can speak a little bit. There are learned skills that you have. So even if it doesn't come naturally to you as someone who might be jumping in to volunteer, hand raised, whatever, you don't have to do that, right? A service doesn't have to be something big and grand. It doesn't have to be on your mind all the time either. But if we can learn how to think of others and we can practice those skills, then they become more doable, right? I don't have to speak in front of people all the time, so I'm not going to maybe. But when the opportunity comes up, I know how and I can. And I might look for, ways to be present in that moment more so than shy away if I have the skills to do it. Same thing, I think, with service. So yes, it comes more naturally to some, but if everyone learns the skills, then when the moments arise, there's going to be a lot more opportunity for everyone to help.
Definitely. Makes total sense. All right. Well, thanks so much, Shaylin, for joining us today. Always a pleasure to speak with you.
Agreed, James. I love it. Thanks for having me.
Of course, anytime. And I feel like we learned so much about service and the service program here at Stanford. Thanks again, guys. If you happen to see Shaylin, make sure you open the door for her or at least say hi. But for now, we're going to say bye-bye. All right? Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Beyond the Classroom is sponsored by Sodexo. Sodexo is a company that provides catering, facilities management, and serves more than 10,000 meals daily. Sodexo is a market leader for providing food services to international schools in Singapore. At Sodexo, we're creating a better every day for everyone.